Commodity TV live from the Mines and Money 2022 in London. And we have now here a really, I would say, big fish out of the copper and gold space. With us is Paul Westsells from Western Copper and Gold. Paul, how are you?
Very good. Yeah, it's a good conference, busy conference.
That's good to hear. So you are active in the copper and gold space in the Yukon territory, where you are developing one of the largest undeveloped copper gold deposits in the Western world, I would call it. Could you just give us an insight in the project and in your company?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, our casino copper gold project, we've been developing it for about 15 years. As you said, this is one of the big ones, right? So we're looking at 10.8 billion pounds of copper, 21 million ounces of gold. It's a good gold deposit.
A little bit of silver?
A little bit of silver, a pretty good chunk of moly. Moly is another big part of it. When you actually benchmark this in terms of undeveloped copper gold projects, we're actually the 5th largest undeveloped copper gold project controlled by a junior mining company like ourselves. Up in the Yukon, just issued a feasibility study, great project.
Can you give us some numbers? You brought out a feasibility study in June. Can you just give us numbers?
Sure,
out of that?
Yeah. No, and yeah, so I mean, and the importance of us issuing a feasibility study in June is like this incorporated all the inflation that we saw in the first 6 months of the year. So we actually did a PEA last year, and then moving forward to the feasibility study, we saw steel prices up 33%, diesel prices up 40%, all that's incorporated. But even with all that inflation, we're looking at a 2.3 billion net present value, 18.1% IRR. Both of those are after-tax numbers. Payback in 3 years, and that's on that's a 27-year mine life, and it's on a reserve now of 1.2 billion tons in the for the main mill reserve and 200 million tons for the heap leach reserve. That's a third of the deposit. I mean, we already have identified, through our drilling, 3.6 billion tons of material there. So, this is a great deposit. It's a great feasibility study, and we're keep moving it forward.
So Yukon territory, there's not such an infrastructure like here in London, I would call it. But on the other side, you're surrounded by relatively big names who have projects there. So Newmont is one example for this. Yeah. So how is the infrastructure, and how is the relationship with the neighbors? And could you work together with them in the future, or establish a new mining district or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things. I mean, so first of all, the Yukon, it doesn't have London-like infrastructure, but what it does have is it's got a very good road network. And I mean, there does need to be additional road work for our casino project, which I'll talk about in a second. But more importantly is we're 560 kilometers away from a year-round port in Skagway, Alaska. This is the same port that the Minto mine is using. It's well been established as a port for the Yukon. So pretty close to tidewater. So that's a real plus. In terms of additional road, so we need to put 200 kilometers of new road, but the government, actually the federal government and the Yukon government is committed to building the first 100 kilometers. And actually, at the beginning of this year, they actually started to build the first part of that, which is a bypass and a bridge. I mean, it's a $25 million contract that's underway as we speak.
Wow. Okay. So then you have a really big strategic investor, Rio Tinto. So what's that all about?
Yeah. So, I mean, the story with Rio Tinto is that we, signed a strategic investment agreement with them 18 months ago. And the basis of that agreement is that they came in, they gave us $25 million for around 8% of the shares. We signed that agreement because at the time, we said, look, we've been developing this thing for 15 years. It's a big deposit. You guys should just buy it. And they came back to us and said, well, we want to do a little more diligence, a little bit more work. So we did a bunch of work together. That work is mostly complete. Like, I'm going to say 99% complete. Not quite there. Rio had a one-time right to extend their rights. They executed that last week, so their rights are now good till, I guess, November 28th, 2023. But I think what's important for everyone to understand is that it's, I don't think they're going to spend that year. I mean, the work that we wanted to do, that they wanted to do, that we did together, is mostly complete. It's sitting with them right now, making a decision on really what to do moving forward.
Okay, so you have a elephant resource, you have a feasibility study. So next steps are then decision by Rio Tinto, or what are the next milestones?
Yeah, the Rio Tinto, I'm expecting that we're going to hear something relatively soon from them, but I can't just wait. Rio, they've been a great partner, they've been a great strategic investor, but they're a big company, lots of bureaucracy within inside of those companies, so they're going to move at their pace. We're not stopping. So, right after that feasibility study, we've got this great permitting team that we put together. They're looking to get the permit application in mid-year next year. And then after that, we're sort of sitting about 3 years of permitting. And there's a real opportunity here with Rio that we can't pass up. But the other option is just driving that forward from where we are now. Why that's exciting is this project, right now, it's a 2.3 billion net present value. Our market cap is around 300 million. We're trading at 10-15% of NAV. Yeah. This project fully permitted should trade about 50% of NAV. So there's a real upside, just by moving it forward through that permitting process as well.
Okay. So also important in Canada is relationship with the First Nations. What Absolutely. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we've got 5 First Nations that we deal with, but the key First Nation we deal with, which is the Selkirk First Nation, they already have the Minto mine within their First Nation. They understand mining, they understand the benefits that mining brings. So that's key. The other thing that I talk about, is there's a couple real world examples of where we as a company have really worked with the First Nations to better the project. One, we spent 2 years executing what's called a BAT study, which is a best available tailings technology study. Spent 2 years with the First Nations, the government, the regulator, came up with a better design. That's actually now the basis design that went into the feasibility study. That's us all working collaboratively together. Another example is this road. This access road that I just talked about is under construction. That's only under construction because the government signed a deal with the First Nation to go forward with that road. They're not building a road to Casino because they don't generally support the mine. So, got a good relationship with the First Nations. First Nations in the Yukon are pretty mining friendly for the most part. Depends on the part of the Yukon, but certainly in the area where we are, it's a very mining friendly jurisdiction. Right next to us is Newmont with Coffee. Coffee just got their project fully through environmental assessment, and they're 20 kilometers away. Same groups of First Nations that we're dealing with.
Okay. So Rio Tinto is a strategic investor. Are there any other institutions or strategic investors involved?
There's institutional investors, but no strategics. So it's just Rio Tinto. Really, like I said, they're coming in, they're having their look. We'll see what the next step is.
What's management holding?
Management, I think the total is a little under 5%. So, and that's one of our directors is a fairly big shareholder, followed probably by myself, one of our VPs. Yeah.
Okay, so sounds good to me. Next steps?
Next steps for us, well, I think let's see what Rio does. I think we'll know which way, we'll know what Rio's thoughts are, I think, by the end of Q1 of next year. And then just keep pushing the project forward.
Wonderful. Okay, Paul, thank you very much for this insight
Perfect.
In your company. Yeah, that was Commodity TV with Paul Westsells, the CEO of Western Copepr and Gold. Yeah, you heard it, the company is in good shape. Now we have to look what Rio Tinto is doing, and then hopefully this really big copper, gold, silver, molybdenum project will get very well developed. So I would say check out the company, do your own research, and bye-bye from London.